as we said, data is the new oil. Like data is so much in fashion, personal data. Every company wants to have it. Mark Zuckerberg, in one of his interviews, said that privacy is a myth because the whole concept of Facebook flourishes on the part that let's privacy not be privacy. There's nothing private, right? And the concept of private also varies. What is private to you might not be private to somebody else. Maybe taking pictures in public before the 80s was not so popular. And if you would take pictures in public, people then would be like, oh my God, they're taking pictures. Is something hindering your private space? But now it's so common. If you step out from your house to the metro, you take 10 pictures outside the metro station, inside the metro sometimes, even when it's prohibited, right? The whole concept of privacy has evolved gradually. And that's how we say that data, it's not just data, it's actually personal data is the new oil. And with the advent of internet and it reaching households, data became available in abundance. And then came the problem of storing data. How was data being processed? And all this generated the commercial value of data because with advancement of technology, you could link various kinds of data, and by linking or by studying that data through AI, you could come to a result that I, as a person, on every Thursday, I order pizza from a place. And if you have that data about me, you could start sending me those pizza marketing advertisements that you have 50% off. You do not have 50% off or on certain days because you've studied my behavior. Or, for example, if I start shopping on Myntra, for example, new dresses for you, and it shows things that I have been looking at. So as easy as it becomes for me because I get something filtered, imagine that they're studying your behavior, how you're behaving, and that's what they're capitalizing on. That is how, when it started, it became important to protect personal data. And that's why so many restrictions now on processing of personal data. Why the need for data protection? I said, but I'll just go through a little bit of history here because I am a bit of a history nerd. So I like to know how things started. With the commercialization of computers and the advent of internet, the system for collection of data became complicated because before the advent of internet there was not so much data that was actually being stored in computer, or it couldn't be stored at a place. But when internet came, there was a data boom and they did not know where to store it. Like, where would it be stored? How would it be used? There's so much of data, something they had anticipated but not imagined that the boom of this data would be so much. And then people started sharing enormous amount of data, and the government recognized that there was a need for better data management. And that's why laws started coming into being. Like, there was exponential growth in the amount of data that was being shared. You can also relate it to personal behavior. So I remember when I was in school, Facebook came, Orkut was there. Then the largest migration happened from Orkut to Facebook, and then people went on Facebook, and then people were sharing all their data, everything that they were doing. But now I see people restraining themselves. They don't want to do it because they understand that what are the problems of sharing data. You can fly from one place to another without putting it on Facebook. That's possible. And now people have understood that it is possible to do that. You don't have to notify the world where you're going. And people have become more private in their lives. When there was this exponential boom, the government similarly realized that what is it leading to? How are the businesses using this? Basically misusing this data. Misusing would be the right word here, for their own gains and profits. So that's how these. However, way before this, the UDHR and the European Charter on Fundamental Rights, it all talks about protection of personal data and protection of family life, but it was not that explicit. When they talked about family life, it meant person's name, their family people's name, their home address, location, and peace in the vicinity where they're living. But it did not expressly talk about personal data. It took time for personal data to come there, and then the laws started coming in. But if you look at it, the impact of UDHR on GDPR, under article, it talks about private life, and it also talks about freedom of expression. But then it also talks about balancing. If you look at Article 29 clause subclause 2, it talks about striking a balance between the rights, right? My right to do business, somebody's right to express their opinion, my right to protect personal data. Rights are not absolute. There are certain curbs on the right which will be put in certain cases, and it's generally, whenever you have a question like this, that this is the right and it is it's not absolute, you need to look at it from, especially when it comes to GDPR, that how does it affect human rights? And that's where you start getting your answers. Sometimes when you're there and you don't understand how to answer it, you can link it from there, that how would human rights deal with this problem? And then you can think that how would it be dealt into GDPR? It is for situations where you do not know what the answer is. Not always, because if you've read the GDPR, you will have your answer. This is just a trick. Like in your mind, when you're answering a question, when you're anticipating something that, no, I don't know how to answer this, then think about it. And then you'll start getting your answers. Enlighten the cognitive faculties of your mind. And that came out very literature ways. But yeah, do that and link it to the human rights. And that's how you'll get your answer. Because it all comes down from there. So protection of private life, protecting one's private life, and then protection of personal data after data came into being.